Hi, I'm Sarah from You Floral, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make a wedding arch out of flowers that is perfect for your DIY wedding. So let's get started and I'll show you exactly how to do it. So there's a couple different options to create an armature that will hold your flowers in place, but I'm using this Oasis foam, which I've pre-soaked, and then this cage. So I'm just going to put the floral foam in the cage here and then just put the sides together. So this might leak a little bit just because it's all full of water. But we need it to be full of water in order for our flowers to stay hydrated. So I'm just doing these couple little clips in place, and there you go. We've got it within the cage. And the cage is important because this foam is so porous that if you were just to put it and strap it onto the arch like this, it would just cut right through the foam. So you need to have it in some sort of cage or chicken wire. So I've got some zap straps here in my pocket. And this cage has a hole in it here. So I'm gonna put the zap straps through and then just zap strap it to my arch. And then it's nice because it's got this cage part, so I can put my zap straps all around and make sure that it's nice and firmly attached to my arbor here. And then I'll take my pruning shears and I'm just gonna cut the tops off here, just so you don't see the zap straps when you're done with it. So the first thing I'm going to do with my arrangement here is start with what's called greening it out, and that's in adding in my greenery. So I've got two types of greenery here. This one here is my silver dollar eucalyptus, and this is what a bunch size is, just for reference. And then this here is seeded eucalyptus. Again, one bunch size, so that way you guys can tell for reference. So when I'm using the greenery, there's gonna be leaves on the bottom like this, and I'm gonna have to pull those off because I can't stick the leaves directly into the foam because it will impede the access of it. So what I'm gonna do is start by putting greenery into my arrangement to form the greenery structure of it. So I'm deciding what size to put in here. If I were to put this piece here and shove it into the foam, you can see that that makes the arch arrangement extend kind of out to here. And then if I put another equivalent one over here, I'd be having an arch arrangement kind of this big. So that's where you kind of have to decide how big of an arrangement you want. So for me right now, for this demo, I don't want something that big. So instead, I'm gonna take this eucalyptus and cut it into a couple different pieces. And then that way my arrangement isn't gonna end up being so large. And this arrangement is going to leak a little bit, so make sure that you're doing this somewhere where it's okay that the water is dripping. But as it kind of hydrates itself out, it will stop all that dripping. I wanna make sure that I put my greenery in at least a couple inches in, because it's gonna need to drink from this floral foam for the entire duration of your wedding. So you need to make sure that it's nice and put within the foam here. Particularly with silver dollar eucalyptus, you can see it's pretty much like a branch here. So I'm gonna just cut off the sides here, so that way I have a bunch of little pieces rather than this giant rangy sort of tree. I'm gonna make sure that I'm remaining symmetrical here. So I don't wanna make this side too much larger than my other side. So sometimes it helps if you just go and take a step backwards, because when you're so close to it, it's a little bit hard to see the scale. So you might wanna actually go and stand back to make sure that you don't have too much more greenery on one side versus the other. So I'm starting to get a bit of a nice shape here. I think I'm probably done with the length that I want on either side. And so I'm gonna put a little bit more greenery sort of in this middle piece here. So I'm gonna need smaller pieces of greenery because I don't want a giant arrangement. And so I'm just gonna kind of poke it in the middle like so. If I have a piece like this that's just a long piece, I can just cut it in half, and then I'll peel off the bottom pieces here so I have a clear stem to put in. Then I can use that, and then I can also use the second piece here. So So to help you guys with sort of scale of reference, this is now one bunch of my silver dollar eucalyptus that I've now greened out within this space. So I think I'm going to start now with the flowers, and then I'm gonna fill in any spaces that I see after with my seeded eucalyptus, but this is now providing the structure and kind of give me the length that I want. The next flowers I'm going to start with are my really big flowers. So for big flowers, I'm using this Disbud Mum. I'm going to cut the ends at a 45-degree angle using my pruners, and I want to start with some length. So I'm starting outwards like this. And I'm going to stagger the length so you can see that some of them are going to be shorter, like closer into the foam than others. And I'm going to do this on both sides, just so I have that symmetry as well. In the middle here, I'm going to have the flowers sort of facing outwards. So I'm going to cut them a little bit shorter. Make sure I pierce through the back there, so that way now that flower can't get hydration. So make sure you don't do that, because they need to be within the actual foam in order to be able to drink from it. Something you're gonna wanna be careful with is not to create eyeballs. So if I put these right next to each other at the exact same depth, it'll look kind of like eyeballs. So I wanna sort of stagger them in different directions so they have that depth without looking like I just stuck eyes onto my arrangement. I have some white dahlias here. I'm just gonna put these in obviously because this is a demo, but if you actually were using dahlias, they are very, very delicate and they don't tend to have a super long lifespan. So I'm not the hugest fan of using them in arrangements that have a water source like floral foam. I prefer something more like a vase, but they're so beautiful and I'm just making this for a short time right now. So I thought I'd show you guys what a mix looks like with these dahlias mixed in with the Disbud Mums. You can always take out ones that you don't love. Like I really was not loving how far out that one was extending. So I just pulled it out and then put a new one in there. So I think now I'm gonna add in some smaller flowers. So I've got my really big ones that are covering up the space. So I'm gonna add in what I like to call the bougie flowers. So this is some cosmos. I also like for bougie flowers like ranunculus or scabiosa. These are the ones that are kind of like a jewelry sort of deal. They just add some different texture and they are smaller and they're just really pretty to add in. So I don't add as many of these because they're kind of like the accent pieces, but I'm just gonna intersperse these as well throughout the arrangement. With all my flowers, I'm removing the excess leaves because the leaves need water to keep them looking perky, and I want my flowers to concentrate on putting all their effort towards keeping the blooms actually healthy and intact. So I want to just remove anything that would distract them from their main goal of keeping their blooms looking nice. Here's a good example why you always want to order extra, 5% extra. So I just broke this little bloom putting it in there, and I think even if I cut it, maybe I can get a second life with it, but you might accidentally break stuff, so make sure you order extra. Now I want to add in my texture flower. So this is one stem of Eryngium. So it has a ton of different little blooms on it. And I really like adding in something like Eryngium or Hypericum just to give that fun little pop of texture. So I'm just going to add these in. And like I showed you how big that stem was, I'm not going to put all that entire stem at once into my arrangement because that would just be overpowering. So I'm just kind of breaking it into smaller pieces so that way it's more subtle and interspersed rather than just an overpowering amount of Eryngium in one section. When I'm so close to this arrangement like this, it's hard to tell what it looks like. So I'm going to take a moment and step back and get a view from it from further back, and then I can decide where I want to put in more flowers. All right, so I'm going to call this done. I actually didn't end up using any of the seeded eucalyptus at all. I just used this one bunch of silver dollar and then interspersed all the flowers within it. The last thing I'm gonna do is I have this finishing touch spray, which is a hydration spray. I'm just gonna give it a nice light mist just to help lock in the hydration and reduce any browning or wilting. In terms of when you should make this, so because it has the floral foam, it's gonna have hydration associated with it, but that will dry out, especially when it's really hot. So you could make this the day before, but best is the morning of your wedding. If you are making this the day before, if you're doing it outdoors, if you leave this sitting out overnight, like who knows if the wind will come up or if an animal will knock it over. So if you're gonna make it the night before, if it's outdoors, I'd be a little cautious around this. If this was inside in a hall or a church or something, that's a different story. But just having it as close to your wedding as possible increases the chances that these flowers will stay nice and hydrated. So hopefully you learned something by watching today, and thanks for watching.